Doreen.
Doreen, yes. I'm an out-of-towner. I lived here for 13 years, but forever I will be a Bostonian. Thank you for allowing us to speak today. I know this is kind of out of your order of rules. When I lived in DC, I was appointed to several boards by City Council and as well as our governor and other illustrious, fun people. I don't admire you where you sit right now. I had fun boards. I did Workforce Commission for the state of Virginia, or Commonwealth, I should say. I want to give you guys a couple of compliments, and you in particular. I'm sorry I don't know your name, Dr.
Eleanor?
Yeah.
Cooper.
Yes.
I'm John.
John. Yes, thank you. Okay. I like the idea that you are ensuring that everyone who's coming to this table and in this process is being held accountable. That there's no scuttlebutting, there's no inability for someone to not participate in the process. I also appreciate Dr. Fletcher in reminding the board that 40% of the family docket are pro se litigants, and they're not pro se by choice. For someone who went from 6 figures to Medicaid, who died during giving birth and came out disabled, it was very daunting to have to be thrown into family court months after they died and trying to get their life back. So it wasn't a choice for me to be pro se. It was something I had to do and I didn't want to do. With that, that means that some of the documents that you're asking for, I had to become indigent. And I had to sit there and say, I can't afford a lawyer and I can't afford to respond to the suit against me, and I need the court to help me waive the fees. But that doesn't waive the fees for transcripts. That doesn't waive the fees for the psychologist who wanted to come and testify to protect my child, because that person that wanted access to the child was already exhibiting on the first and second visitation on November 8th, 2014 and November 12th, 2014 abuse. And they were disregarded on a stand by a judge later, as well as her play therapist, her GI specialist, and they all testified that that person should not have access. As well as a former guardian litem for the Travis County DRO, who reviewed the case, the guardian litem's case, and said that there's a problem here, and this person should have supervised therapeutic visits, which is what I was asking for. When we're asking for people who are pro se like myself to come up and say, hey, we have a legitimate complaint because there's been a hired gun on the other side who's overlooking, who is ignoring 3 to 5 years of trauma therapy, because trauma is not really played well in court. Litigants get upset, they're with their abuser, they're having a hard time. They're nervous because they're in court, they don't have the confidence because they've been with someone. I have heard of a case recently of where abuse was admitted on the stand by the father, and he was given full custody. The Leadership Council has estimated that 58,000 children per year are put in the hands of an abuser as full custody, or they have unsupervised visits. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of different types of the CDC, the APA, the AMA, the National Council of Juvenile and Family Court Judges have been putting out for decades that this type of conversation that we're having needs to involve some of their research. And their research is that the custody court evaluators are actually getting it wrong. And that if you look at TBHEC, which is run out of Georgetown, that particular lawyer and those who are there have done research along with our federal government to show that the custody court evaluators can get it wrong. Now, there are good ones and there are bad ones, but the mistakes that the bad ones are making, whether they are done on a higher level or not, cannot be, thank you so much, I'll watch my time, cannot be overlooked. So when we're asking for that it's only in the final judgment, and we're asking to educate, there's two things I'm gonna say. Make it look like temporary orders versus final judgment. At least let that be passed first. So then we can say, if someone has come up and they have done something that is out of the APA's guidelines, let's address it there. Let's not continue to put the kids for more trauma. I'm the Texas chair of the Stop Abuse campaign. What I do is I speak up Capitol Hill, and I look at, and as well as here in the state of Texas. And we talk about laws about ACEs, trauma. I bring in, and I'm bringing in national experts to Texas to help talk about trauma to our legislators and to our judges, and hopefully your group. And I don't think that we should shy away from that because they speak nationally and internationally. And I think we have an opportunity to learn from other states and what they do. I do believe that there are fake actors. There are people who are greedy and they build a chain. But that chain is built on the backs of our children. And Texas children deserve more.
Thank you. I believe the end